26 NFL teams have their rookie mini camps coming up here this weekend. Let's discuss the rookie contract and how it all works. I think fans don't fully understand it. We'll go through all of it here today. NFL Spotlight starts now. Welcome in. It is the Friday, May 9 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show, wrapping up the week. As always, we appreciate all the support here for NFL Spotlight. Make sure you are subscribed here on YouTube if you are not yet. Let's talk about NFL rookies and really just rookie contracts in general. Let me bring in my good friend Ben Allen. Ben, what is going on? It's great to see you here as we wrap up the week.
Yeah, it's great to see you too, Ari. Yeah, let's go ahead and get into some of the rookie contract stuff because, as a lot of us know, things used to be a lot more complicated. We used to see guys getting drafted into the league. They would come in, we'd see the introduction kind of stuff, but then immediately it became this whole like, well, how much money is he going to get? How much is this quarterback going to be trying to demand? But how much is he going to squeeze their head before they see the field? Those days are large part behind us now that they have like the slots figured out, all that jazz. But there's still negotiations that take place. Are you able to kind of break down what those negotiations are like, what they can and can't negotiate, and what those guys are really doing right now as they get ready for minicamp?
So the reason I wanted to talk about this here today is because I think a lot of fans don't fully understand how rookie contracts work. And the way it works nowadays, and ever since the Cam Newton draft, when that new CBA came in, is that every single pick has a slotted value of how much they're going to make. If you're the number one overall pick, you make the most, and down the list it goes. And just for a reminder, and for people who don't know, the younger fans out there, before that Cam Newton draft, the Sam Bradford draft, the Matthew Stafford draft, and really every draft before that, there were actual negotiations going on about how much a player is going to make on his contract. And the contracts were insane. Like the Sam Bradford one, which is the last one under that CBA, he signed a 6-year, $78 million contract. And at the time, a lot of owners were like, why are we paying so much money for guys coming in from college and we don't even know if they're going to be good or not? And of course, there were many examples of number one overall picks and number two overall picks who were just busts. Most famously, Jamarcus Russell, as soon as he got into the NFL, got $50+ million. And of course, he did not pan out in Oakland at the time. And owners were like, you know what, we're going to stop with these type of contracts. And back then, there were so many holdouts and players would literally just not show up until, right before the end of training camp or during the regular season. Like they would not get on the field, get to know their teammates, get to know the coaches. It was a very big mess. Sometimes if you're the number one overall pick, you would already negotiate the contract before getting drafted. It was very, very complicated. So the NFL moved on from that structure. And ever since the Cam Newton draft in 2011, there have been slotted picks in the NFL and the NFLPA. They agreed to an amount for the rookie pool, and that's basically how it works. So every single time a player signs a contract nowadays, a rookie player, you'll see comments out there like people saying, oh, overpay, why would you do that? So much money. Like that's not the way it works. Every single player has a set amount and it's going to become official. Whenever Cam Ward is going to sign his deal in Tennessee, it's going to be a 4-year deal, $48.7 million, $32.1 million signing bonus. The numbers are officially set. Now the question becomes, so what do you negotiate? Like what's the point of having an agent? Well, an agent is there for many things besides for negotiating, but there are some things to negotiate. First of all, if you are, there used to be a time where the amount that's actually guaranteed in the contract was not always fully guaranteed. Over the last couple of years, all first round picks now get fully guaranteed contracts. And we actually found out on Thursday that Jaden Higgins, who was drafted by the Texans, number 34 overall, he also got a fully guaranteed contract. So that is now setting some new precedent where guys in the second round are starting to get all their contract years 1 through 4 fully guaranteed no matter what. But after that, pick number 35, 36 and on, not every single dollar is guaranteed. And that is stuff that could be negotiated. Also, what could be negotiated is when the player actually gets the money. There's a very, very large signing bonus that players get upon signing the contract. Some people, you think you just get it right away up front. Some teams are like, no, 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 we're going to pay this in installments. So every situation is different, but there's always arguments usually at the top of the draft because you go by the history of what happened previously. So one very interesting one that we're going to have this year, the Titans with Cam Ward, number one overall pick. His signing bonus is $32.1 million. If you go over the years, Tennessee likes paying their signing bonuses in installments. They'll pay you some of it in May, the rest of it in June, after that, the rest next year or whatever. The Bears and Panthers, who had the number one overall picks the last couple of years, Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, they paid the entire thing upfront right away. So if you're Cam Ward and you're his team, you're like, hey, the last couple of number one overall picks, they got it right away. We're going to want to get everything as soon as we put pen to paper. So there could be a very interesting negotiation going down there in Tennessee with Cam Ward. Other things you can negotiate as well, the offset language. What does that mean? Offset language basically is, let's just say the player does not play the full 4 years of his contract and he gets released by his team. Let's just make a scenario. Ted McMillan does not play the 4 years in Carolina, gets released in year 4. If he's owed $4 million in year number 4, does he get that $4 million from Carolina and get to sign up for a new team and make more money? Or is it whatever he signs with that other new team, that money comes off the $4 million? So you could always have a disagreement on that. Years ago, Roquan Smith, he did not sign with Chicago until very late in training camp. That was one of the big arguments there that they were having between both sides. So it's very rare to have holdouts in all of this, but sometimes these type of disagreements do hold up situations here. But for the most part, these usually go really, really fast. We saw yesterday Ashton Genty officially signed with the Raiders on his deal. He got a 4-year, $35.8 million deal. $22.7 million is via a signing bonus. Again, that is all slotted numbers. Colston Loveland, he officially signed in Chicago, number 10 overall pick, 4-year deal, $26.6 million for him. So we're going to have all of these flowing in over here over these next couple of weeks as teams officially have these guys in their building. And the hope, of course, to have every single guy signed by training camp before it gets real and pads officially go on. One more thing I'll mention when it comes to rookie contracts. These guys have rookie minicamp starting today, tomorrow, whatever it is. They're going to be on the field. Well, what happens if they have not signed the contract yet and they get injured? Well, these guys all sign an injury waiver that regardless of what happens on the field, they are still going to get their contract of what the slotted amount is. It's not like if they suffer a catastrophic injury, now all of a sudden teams like, oh, we're not going to sign anymore. We're not going to pay you. A good example of this, the 2015 draft, I believe it was, Dante Fowler, number 3 overall pick. He tore his ACL in rookie minicamp before he signed his number 3 overall pick contract in Jacksonville. They still got a deal done. They still paid him in full, the signing bonus and all of that. So there is no concern about getting on the field and potentially getting injured. These guys, their contracts are essentially locked in. They all sign an injury waiver upon arriving in the building, and they can go on the field without worrying about that possibility.
So Jaden Higgins, second round pick, he's going to be getting a fully guaranteed like contract.
4-year deal.
Like,
4-year
so
deal.
that's
Yep.
interesting to me because what leverage do these players hold to be able to do basically any negotiating if there is a slot and you've already been drafted to that team? So like, how does that get negotiated that the team would actually, allow that to be something that they give in on?
So this is the interesting thing. The Houston Texans have been the one team that have been very, I guess, lenient when it comes to this stuff. Like other teams are a little bit strict with this stuff. Like second round picks, we're not fully guaranteeing everything. We'll fully guarantee 86% of the contract. The Texans over the last couple of years, they have kind of reset some things over here, which other teams probably are not happy about. But look at this. In 2022, they fully guaranteed 3 years for Jalen Petrie, who was the 37th overall pick. That had never been done before. Damian Pierce, who was picked in round 4, they gave him more compensation than in his 3rd year of his contract. That also never happens for players picked in round 4. Kamir Lassiter, pick number 42, got guarantees in year 4, also a year ago, which does not happen for players who are picked at pick number 42. So they do this way more than other teams. And the way it works is that if a team who picks a player at 42 sets an amount where we're guaranteeing this much, The guy who was picked at 41, and his agent is like, if pick 42 is getting that, I better get this as well. And that's kind of where sometimes you have some dilemmas with teams where the team is like, no, we're not going to do this. But the agent's like, hey, pick 42 picked after us did get it. So we must get it now as well. So if you're, let's just use this example, Jaden Higgins, who was taken at 34, his situation by him getting a fully guaranteed deal. If you are a player like Carson Schlesinger, who was picked at 33 now, Cleveland must give you a fully guaranteed deal because 34 got a fully guaranteed deal. So he's going to become the second ever player to be a second round pick who has a fully guaranteed deal after Jaden Higgins, thanks to the Houston Texans, did that. Now, what becomes interesting is will pick number 35, which is Nick Emanwari in Seattle, does he try to push it over here, and will Seattle give in or not? So it's a very, very fun thing over here that goes on. It's all negotiating tactics. This is the one thing over here where agents who might not like each other kind of root for each other. You're like, hey, if you do this, that means I'm going to be able to get that from my client as well. So it's a lot of inside baseball stuff, but I think a lot of fans just never knew some of these things, but it's a lot of really intriguing stuff. It's definitely way simpler than it once was. If we had the system that we had years ago and the contracts they were getting and the way they had to be negotiated, and players literally would not show up for training camp and all of that, and they finally show up at the end of training camp or during the regular season. Jamarcus Russell was holding in into the regular season. Like, that stuff used to happen back then. That almost never happens nowadays in the NFL. The amount of holdouts we've had over the last several years, I could probably count it on my hand. I remember Joey Bosa had one, Roquan Smith had one, Zach Wilson sort of had one, but it's very, very rare for us to have these type of holdouts with rookie players anymore of this system.
Sorry, I'm going to keep harping on this one because this is so interesting to me with Jaden Higgins. So Higgins was the first player that the Texans took in this draft because they traded out of the first round with their player. So in theory, they could look at him as their first round pick. They're going to go ahead and guarantee this. Did they do this so other teams would have to? Like, is there some thought? I mean, like, again, like next year is another year and you are now going to be dealing with that moving forward. But is there actually any strategy to that where they're like, maybe we make some of the other teams have to pay more, like where that's actually a little bit of posturing for that?
I don't think so. I don't think that's the way it works, but the Texans, for whatever reason, have historically just been very chill about it. They're like, yeah, we'll fully guarantee it and just move on.
So that's
So,
just making the players happy then. That's more of just
yeah,
like
it's
being like for the dudes.
correct. Like, the way to do it, if this was any other team than the Texans at 34, let's just say it was the New York Giants, they would go back to last year's draft, look at pick number 34, Ladd McConkey, see what that contract was, and basically tell the agent, hey, last year pick 34 got this. We're going to match that, or we'll go up by another 0.5% or whatever. That's usually the way it works. The Texans were like, screw that. We're just going to give you the full 100% and end it over here, which as a result will help Carson Schlesinger at number 33. And moving forward, starting next year, every single pick until pick 34 at a minimum is going to get fully guaranteed money. That's just the way it's going to work. I'll say this much. Like, a couple of years ago, first round picks were not getting fully guaranteed money. It went until pick 23, 24. Eventually 25 got it, 26 got it, and eventually 29 got it, and then eventually just got all the way to the end of the first round. And now, finally, we're entering round 2 over here, where fully guaranteed money is also going into round 2. So each year, it kind of goes deeper and deeper in the draft, but this was a new milestone over here that we had on Thursday with the Texans giving fully guaranteed money to Jaden Higgins, which is now the new precedent moving forward. Moving forward, no matter what, until pick 34 in the draft, those guys will be getting 4-year fully guaranteed deals.
I laugh a little bit about this because who are the picks before the Texans but the Browns? So how funny is that they get one more stab, one little twist? That those teams will always be connected due to the Deshaun Watson trade, and I get a kick out of that.
Well, Cleveland was
Moving
the
this
team who
forward a
gave the
little,
fully guaranteed contract, of course.
yeah, well, that's true. All right, moving this forward a little bit. So, if you were in charge of the CBA, you were in charge of all the collective agreement, the bargaining, all this, that, and the other. What are things that you like that you would want to keep about the current setup for these rookie contracts? And what would be some of the things that you would like to see changed or instituted?
Like, this is the way I look at it. I think it's way simpler now than it once was. But all those little negotiating stuff that still goes on, let's get rid of that also. I mean, let's just set up the signing bonus to be he gets paid at this amount, whether it's all at once or it's going to be all in a calendar year, whether it's every other month or whatever it is. Let's just have those things set up. And then the offset language is one that always is a problem among some teams over here, especially in the later rounds. That is the other one where it's like, let's just have that set up over here where offset language is in the contract or is not in the contract. End of story. So it's just the little things over here that are basically remaining here. But I like this system more. It's far simpler. It's obviously these players are getting less money than what it once was under the previous bargaining system. But the reality is, those players that were getting drafted years ago, they were literally getting more money than a lot of the players who were on the roster who were star players. And on top of that, it also made drafting players much more difficult. Like if you go back to the 2005 draft, for example, the Aaron Rodgers draft, Alex Smith goes 1, Aaron Rodgers slides to 24. The reason Aaron slides to 24 is because teams were like, we cannot afford another quarterback contract on top of our current quarterback contract. So that is part of the reason why he slid all the way to 24, because of how the contract structure was set up back then. If the contract structure was set up the way it is now, Aaron probably gets taken at some point during that draft way earlier. But because the contract structure system was way different, these guys were getting paid so much money. If Aaron would have been drafted by a team at number 10, he would have been making more money than possibly that team starter. So it would have just made no sense. So the structure back then also was very difficult about that. Now I picked this player here. This is how much he's getting, and it fits right in. And it's usually a really, really good contract, cheap contract for the most part, depending on what position you are taking. If you're getting a quarterback over here, tight end's number 1 overall pick, Cam Ward is getting paid $12 million a year. That is dirt cheap compared to what the quarterbacks are getting nowadays. So I like that structure more of here, because these guys, let them prove it and move forward. If there's one thing I would change, now that just comes to mind when we have these conversations, I don't like the fifth-year option. The fifth-year option, which is, again, players who are picked in the first round, they have that fifth-year option as well. Teams are taking advantage of it a little bit, because if you think about it for a second, Ben, these guys are under contract for 4 years. You could add on a fifth year, which is now 5 years. Then you have 2 more franchise tags as well, which is year 6 and year 7. Essentially, these teams could pounce on these guys for 7 years before they ever have a chance to get to the open market. So I would love for the fifth year option to be gone. These guys have 4-year deals. Extend them after year 3 if you love them and move forward. Jamar Chase should not have played a 4th year this past year. Micah Parsons should not have had to play a 4th year this past season. So these guys who are really, really superstar players, they should be getting contract extensions after year 3, because they have proven they are superstar players. They should be getting the contracts that guys were getting in that previous CBA when they were getting those ridiculous contracts, which owners thought was not worth it for guys who were not in the league yet. Now that these guys have proven it after 3 years, most of these guys should be getting paid after year 3. Some of these owners, Cincinnati with Jamar, Jerry with Micah, and a bunch of other guys, Justin Jefferson the year before, made him play out year 4. It's just these guys have proven it in their first 3 years. Why are you making them play a 4th year on a dirt cheap contract? So I would love for the 5th year option to be gone for first round picks. We'll have a new CBA in 2030, 2031, whenever that is. So maybe they'll negotiate getting rid of that. But I understand the concept of it. But I think some teams are taking advantage of it with their star players by having that 5th year.
It's very interesting looking at all the other, the big American sports leagues and how they handle like the rookie stuff. Cause like when you look at the MLB, you have the players getting drafted and then you can negotiate essentially their signing bonus. It's a very interesting structure, but it does lead to issues sometimes where you have a player who's not the unanimous first overall pick. He doesn't actually necessarily have that talent to be able to go in, be that first overall pick, because they want to then take that bonus and give it to someone later on in the draft. Interesting with that, the NBA, you obviously have the first year or the first round picks have a different contract set up than the guys that go in the second round. I imagine there's always these conversations taking place in the NFLPA and in all the different player associations across the leagues. But do you think in that next CBA that the NFLPA is going to make a push to try to get more guaranteed money for the second round, for the third round, so on and so forth? And if so, do you think that there is actually a chance that the owners concede because they're going to then say, okay, well, we want another game added to the calendar?
I mean, I just don't see that being the negotiating tactic the NFL will take to get the NFLPA would take for the 18th game. If you're trying to get another game added to the calendar, you're trying to get something much bigger than that, I would say, right? I mean, there's a lot of other things the PA could be asking for the players in general that would be bigger than like this could be
Like, what
part
would
of
be an
the
example?
pie.
What comes to mind when you say that?
There, I think getting rid of the franchise tag would be one. I think
Mm,
that's one that holds back a lot of players. That's one. Adding an extra buy would be another thing, which I think would probably be a given. Um, Rookie contracts. I don't think this. I don't think like, oh, let's just guarantee these round 2 and 3 stuff is going to be the difference over here when it comes to that. Like, there's got to be other things over here they could think of that are more important to them. Whether it's more of the pie, also the revenue pie. There's other things over here that I think would matter more to the PA. I mean, we could get a PA representative from the league to come
yeah,
on here and talk about that. I think it would be great to hear them out of here because initially this is already going into the weeds, but they had DeMar Smith as their president. They now have a new guy, Lloyd Howell. Lloyd Howell, when he got the job, was like, yeah, 18 games. Who does not love more football? It's great. Over the last couple of months, he's changed that stance to be like, no, 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 we don't want an 18th game because he realized his leverage was going away by saying, I want it. So I think there's a very interesting thing over here going on in the PA where they know it's eventually coming, the 18th game, but what do we want out of it in order to make that happen? So I'm sure they've had those internal discussions with each player rep that there is around the NFL and those type of things. But I do wonder what are some. I think like the second buy is a given. Some other things are going to be givens, but like what else could they do in order to make that happen when they know each owner wants this because the amount of money that's going to come in with an 18th game is obviously astronomical. So I think that would be a good thing to get here on the show at some point. Somebody from the PA, bring them on over here and discuss like, hey, this thing is going to happen eventually. What are some things you think players are missing right now that you think they deserve and you would take in exchange for that 18th game eventually kicking in?
we're of course talking about this in May of 2025. We got a long way to get there, but
Well,
it's gonna be a growing conversation day by day.
Well, definitely until the CBA expires, it's going to be a long way. But the NFL and the PA are willing to start talking about it anytime now. Like
Because
they
why
could change
not?
that. You could go in at any point. I think the big pressure point here, I would say, is those TV deals officially expire in 28 or 29. So I think the NFL would want to have an answer before that, so they can obviously negotiate new deals with an 18th game in place as well. So there's I think the NFL and the NFLPA at some point here in the coming near future, I would say in the next year or two would be my guess. They're going to come together and try to hammer something out to make it happen. And if the NFL wants it, the NFL is going to get it because the last thing the PA is going to want to do is lock out the players because eventually the owners are always going to win. The owners could survive a season without football. Players can't. That's just the reality of it. So I think in the coming years they're going to have that discussion. The CBA does not expire till the 30s. That's right, but I think they're going to come forward before then.
And we'll be here talking about it all the way until it happens or until Ari gets me fired. One of the two. Anyway, let's talk let's talk about some real football. Let's talk about what's well, I say real. It's not real anymore for Jadeveon Clowney. Poor guy. He is looking like he's going to be playing for his seventh team since 2018 if you include that year with the Texans. He has played with a different team every year for the exception of the Browns when he signed late, and the Carolina Panthers have sent him on his way. Um, it's an interesting career for a guy who was a first overall pick. Obviously, everyone remembers the incredible highlights of him coming out of college. I think a lot of people thought what has happened with Miles Garrett. I think a lot of people hoped that could be the Clowney path, of this really athletic guy who is just, tape just explodes. He just bounces off. That hasn't been the career for Clowney. Not to say he has not had a steady, good career, but it has not gone maybe quite the way that he imagined it would. Are you surprised that Carolina went ahead and axed his contract for this year? And what do you think really comes next for the former first overall pick?
Yeah, I was a little bit surprised because he was on my cut candidates list that we did a few months ago. But when they passed on a pass rusher in the first round, taking 10 McMillan, I thought, all right, they're going to keep him because you can never have enough pass rushers. And even though they
they still took a guy in round 2, Nick Scoriton, and round 3, Princely Umamilian. Like, even though they took both those guys in rounds 2 and 3, I was like, those are not guaranteed impact guys day one. So your pass rushers right now are DJ Wanham and Jadeveon Clowney, who are proven guys. And then they also signed Patrick Jones, who was in Minnesota last year. Those are kind of your guys right now. And then you have these rookies who maybe they, show up and they play right away and they're able to be good, or maybe they need some time to develop over here. So I thought Clowney's spot was going to be safe. He was due $7.5 million in cash this year. 2 million of it was already guaranteed. So it was not like some crazy money. And he did play most of the year last year, 5.5 sacks, came back to the Carolinas. He talked about just how excited he was to be back. Of course, he played college football in South Carolina. So like, it was just a very, very unique fit there on a 2-year, $20 million contract after having 9.5 sacks the year before in Baltimore. It just felt like he was going to stick there potentially this year after they passed on a, Jalen Walker or those type of guys in round 1 in the draft. But they move on from him. And you're right. The career arc for Jadeveon Clowney is a very, very interesting one, because has it been a good statistical career? For the most part, yeah. But when you're the number 1 overall pick and there was so much hype around this player becoming the next great thing, 7 teams in 8 years potentially now, if he signs with a team he has not played for here among all those teams recently, that is a lot of movement for a player like him. So very, very interesting. I still think he's going to have a good market over here now that he has been released. I do love the idea of him going back to Baltimore, who wanted to retain him when he became a free agent last year. But once he got that 2-year, $20 million offer in Carolina, he was not going to say no to that. But they would make sense. They, of course, drafted Mike Green, but there are all their other pass rushers, Kyle Van Noy, David Ajabo, Dafe Owe, all those guys in the final year of their contracts. Some of them have had injury concerns. Are they going to continue to replicate all of it? Like, why not add another guy? I think that would make sense, but I would expect him to have some sort of a market over here, because teams can never have enough pass rushes. And Clowney, say whatever you want about him, but he is still somebody who could get to the quarterback, especially if you use him as a rotational guy. So I was a bit surprised Carolina moved on, but I do think he'll find a new home. But that guy who was drafted number 1 overall pick in 2014 in a draft that was absolutely stacked, by the way, he has not necessarily been that guy, but here he is in 2025. He's still going to get, find the team, get some money over here. But 7 teams in 8 years is not what anybody thought his career would be.
It's interesting, to say the least. This is another larger picture thing, but he's a good example of it, because he was part of that Baltimore team a couple of years ago where, the sack numbers were good, but they didn't necessarily have a guy who was like the guy rushing the passer. Do you think with the, these guys being available here and there, like you get some of these guys, Preston Smith, Zadarius Smith, a lot of Baltimore connection guys, but those guys being available, does that kind of make you wonder, like, how is the edge market at $40 million? Like, do you really need to be spending that much money on those big name guys when you can go out and get a Jadeveon Clowney who just got cut? And obviously I'm not trying to compare a Myles Garrett, a TJ Watt, a Micah Parsons to this, but you can put together a decent collection of these guys for a much smaller number.
I disagree. I mean, come on. I mean, like,
no, I get it,
Clowney
but like,
but those guys are game wreckers. Those guys, like offenses and offensive coordinators and offensive line coaches are staying up all night trying to figure out how to handle these guys.
Who's that for the Eagles?
The Jalen Carter. I mean, it's a defensive tackle, but like, come on. These guys are just different animals here.
I get it, but is that $40 million difference?
For Myles Garrett, Max Crosby, and those type of guys, I think
Greg Russo makes half the amount of money as the 12th highest paid edge rusher as compared to the first.
That's where he probably belongs, and I think he took a very, very team-friendly contract on top of it. But Jadeveon Clowney a couple of years ago this contract he was making was $10 million a year.
Sure.
So it's
and that's fair. But if you could have 4 Jadeveon Clowneys or one guy who eats up how much of your cap?
I think that one guy.
I get it. 4 quarters doesn't equal $1. It's just an interesting idea when you are saying that the highest paid center makes $18 million. The highest paid I mean, you go through a highest paid safety, like you're
20.
talking about guys that are making like $20 million, but then you jump all the way to edge and it's like, oh, those dudes are making double.
Well, the edge also, by the way, like the edge market right now, at least like there's 4 guys who are in that category who are making
Yeah.
that type of money. It's Myles Garrett at 40, and then there's a bit of a drop to
Michael,
Daniil Hunter.
Nick Bosa is the only other one. There's 4 guys that make
Right.
over 29.
So there you go. So it's not necessarily like all these guys are making that type of money. Like eventually, once we get Micah and Aiden and all that, we'll get there. But right now, there's only 4 guys who are really in that upper echelon when it comes to that type of money. And the Daniil Hunter contract, even the Max Crosby contract, I know the average says 35, 36, whatever it is, but when you look deeper into the numbers, it's not necessarily that.
I just wanted to get you riled up. Wow, that was the closest we got to actually debating something. You don't get that on NFL Spotlight very often.
Like
But you do get a lot out of this show. And that's why you need to hit subscribe. And you need to go enjoy your weekend, and you need to relax, and you need to enjoy the fact it's the off season, but you still got to tune in because we're going to have more and more of these conversations that aren't necessarily just what the news is going on. Because quite frankly, there's not a lot of news going on. So there is a lot of stuff we need to get
news
to.
going on. The
There is
NFL
news going on.
schedule
No. But there's
NFL schedule release, Ben. That's coming up. Are you not excited for the schedule release?
I'm going to put you on single.
The schedule release is a real thing. It's coming up next week. Wednesday, the full thing comes out, and I guarantee you we're going to leak some of them here as well on the My Sports Update Twitter page throughout the course of Monday, Tuesday, and into Wednesday. But that will do it here for our Friday, May 9 edition of the NFL Spotlight Show. A lot of back and forth here on this Friday with Ben. Maybe we'll do that more often here on NFL Spotlight. Like Ben was saying, make sure you are subscribed, and we will see all of you here on Monday morning.